The significance of this trial, in my mind, really comes down to two different things. Number one is the amount of time that we spent on this trial. There were a period of about 7 weeks prior to trial, and this is having done everything else, investigation up through preliminary hearing and motions, where we worked every day. I remember working on the 4th of July, sitting up in our conference room upstairs watching the Stampede Parade go down 10th Avenue while working on Mr. Sandoval's case. We worked every day for 7 weeks getting ready for trial, to the detriment of family, friends, of other co-workers, because this is all we were working on. The other aspect of the significance of this case, I think, really focuses on what I think is the uniqueness of the case. And my understanding from symposiums and meetings that I've attended and talking with other people who have done these cases, this had never been done before. And when I say this, what I'm referring to is a case in which a victim's body was never recovered, that there was no specific known murder weapon, there was no crime scene, and there were no admissions or confessions by a defendant. All of those things, I think, combined really make this particular case, if not completely unique, certainly an extraordinary case in Weld County.
I think the first milestone was actually getting the arrest warrant secured. Meeting with Judge Gutierrez, leaving him with the affidavit for, I think it was over the lunch hour, which is uncommon. Allowing him the opportunity to read over at his leisure and take in all of the facts that were presented within the affidavit, and then actually getting the arrest warrant. Honestly, I think the second milestone for me, I know Brad and Keith enjoyed being able to make the arrest, but to be able to go out to Vegas and to dig and to establish enough probable cause for a search warrant into Sandoval's home was probably the biggest milestone for me, because of the fact of proving to an outside agency, to an outside judge, that the circumstantial evidence was so important to a case of that age that it convinced the judge, and then what we got out of the home as a result of the search warrant, and the items of evidence that I would then evaluate and dig through that furthered the case, made it that much stronger. And so some of the items that came out of the search warrant that were important, much ado was made over the photographs, kind of a shrine that Sandoval had created inside of his home, pictures of Tina on either side of his bed. Obviously, officers had already seen that when they made the initial arrest of Sandoval. Photographs were taken of it, but subsequent to a search warrant, actually securing those photos for introduction during trial was big. For me, though, there were the other items that we found on his computer where he had filed as a widower on one of his taxes, basically documenting the layout of the house in relation to what some of his friends would relate to me about where Tina was, Sandoval's allegations that she was alive and that they had chance encounters. Those types of statements were huge when given the other evidence that we knew that Tina had essentially disappeared and was dead. And then the stalking videos that he had showing his depraved actions the entire time he was free just kind of furthered the total evidence that we had against Sandoval when it came to trial. Yeah, again, it's a theory, but it's based on the totality of the evidence obtained, the computers that were taken from Sandoval's home during the search. I secured more search warrants to get into the computers. The vast majority, my own percentage here, but probably 95 to 98% of his internet history downloaded from this computer over roughly a 10-year period was hardcore porn. That was the totality of the use of this computer. But I found that 5 to 3% of activity on the computer entailed something that I discovered in 2008, November of 2008, in which he began to Google and research a facility that CSU had constructed or built in the Pawnee grasslands just off Highway 85. I compared this unique search activity that he was doing with other data from his computer, confirming with travel receipts and reservations that Sandoval had made a trip back to Greeley over Thanksgiving in 2008. And within minutes, it would appear, upon his arrival back home in Las Vegas, he was Googling this remote, odd site in the Pawnee grasslands that CSU had recently begun to turn earth and construct a building. And so his curiosity for something so remote was so odd that clearly there was an underlying reason behind him researching this. And so I made my trips out there. There had not been construction in this vast open area since the 60s. CSU had begun to build out there, and it's my suspicion that Sandoval drove past the dump site, looked off in the distance, saw the construction and the turned earth, was curious what was going on, waited till he got home and immediately got on his computer, and rather than do what he almost exclusively does on the internet, he's Googling this remote site, which is only an indicator to me that Tina's probably buried somewhere in that general area. Well, I have confidence that this isn't going to get overturned. If it does, I'm not necessarily worried. We'll take it back to trial. We have a commitment and have had a commitment, and the family has supported that commitment, and sometimes that family, as remarkable as they are, have even more so supported us, us being the detectives and the prosecutors involved with the case. If it were overturned, there's no doubt in my mind we'd move forward with a second trial. And I guess it would depend on what issues the appellates make decisions upon that we would, I guess, curtail the method in which we prosecute the next case. So, I mean, I'm just not worried about it if they overturn it. I'm more than happy to take another 2 months out of my life and retry this case. We owe that to Tina.